You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Yes, it is time once again for the bi-weekly slice of heaven. That is the option block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from this fine network upon which you're listening to this program right now. Glad you can join us. I hope you can join us live as well. I know Mixlr had some issues earlier this week, so if you're trying to get on some of our shows like Boot Camp and other things earlier this week and it was flickering in and out, should be working now, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So you can join us there on the live or, of course, after the fact, where all of you guys like to join us. Wherever you are, live after the fact, make sure you leave a review so other folks can continue to discover this program. More importantly, probably on the after the fact ones, but we like the live reviews too. And, of course, send those questions, those comments. We do love to hear from you guys. And joining me on the old all-star panel today, first, let's go out to the sleepy, the quiet, the tranquil hamlet known as St. Charles, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, how go things in the land of Skippy Zeros and lemonade, sir?
All is well, but once again, I prefer to be referred to as from parts unknown, just on occasion. On occasion. Maybe not every time, but just on occasion, parts unknown. But all is well. Happy to be here, and I'm back. Markets are up, and I'm actually trading options again with actual size.
So parts unknown, that means you want like cool entrance music. You got to like come out rocking then if you're going to be parts unknown, sir.
Oh, for sure. You
got to come exploding through the tape there. And that frenzied typing can mean we are joined by one of the pit crew. I do believe it is the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com by way of Carmen Line Capital. Mr. G, welcome back to the program. To you as well, sir.
It is good to be here. Thank you. Wow, it's a warm day in Maine.
Well, you're welcome, as we head on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what is dominating our tapes and lighting up our screens here today. And Uncle Mike, perhaps you can help me because I'm confused. You mentioned that we were up earlier, and at least from the market's perspective we are, but today I'm confused. There's a weird color on my screen that I don't recognize. What does it mean when it's all flashing red, sir? What does that mean? I've never seen that before.
I don't know. It's just crazy stuff. I mean, I'm excited because Monday the markets did go positive for the year again. We kind of went up a little more on Tuesday. Yesterday was relatively flat, and then now we're down 1/3%, I believe, in the S&P. So we're just kind of hanging out there. So I think lots of what's going on, we're waiting to see if Congress is going to give more unemployment money out to people or some other type of stimulus check in some way, shape, or form. Not sure if that's going to happen or not. I still think it's too early to tell one way or another. Waiting on that. Also, we do have a lot of earnings this week. So over the course of the last day or two, it seems as if the market's kind of in wait-and-see mode. I'm excited because of right now I put on a call spread with some decent size the other day. Hasn't really done much one way or another, but it is nice to actually be back in again and doing things and doing stuff. Doing stuff is a lot of fun, but if the markets go negative again, won't be shy about stopping to do stuff. So a lot going on right now, and just very exciting markets.
Very exciting indeed. So I'm glad. It's good to have you back, Uncle Mike. You know, it wouldn't be the same without you trading size up there in the marketplace, sir.
It's great to be back. I mean, I've been doing very low delta trades since March, and but thankfully I get to do what I do again. And there is one other thing that's kind of lightened up my tape, and I have trimmed size on it a little bit, but it's this shiny stuff. It starts with hi-ho and, silver. And so silver, we got 3-year highs on silver again, SLV crossing the 21 mark. So that's very exciting. We're still a ways away from my line in the sand for the collar that I have on. So in regard to silver, there's a whole lot of grinning going on, mostly by me. What's concerning me, though, is when you see silver shooting up this much and the market's just kind of sitting still, you kind of have to wonder, is this a situation to where this is the precursor to something not so good that's going to happen? Or is this just silver finally catching up with gold moving up as much as it has? So a lot to watch for sure.
Yeah, spoiler alert, probably going to be touching on silver a little bit later today. On TWIFO, got Mr. Dan Gramza, futures educator extraordinaire, joining us on the program a little bit later today. So that should be fun, and I know he's got silver on the brain as well. So a lot of folks, if you're in the werewolf / lycanthropy sphere, maybe stay away from that episode. Might be a little spooky for you out there. Speaking of spooky, the Rock Lobster's always got something spooky on the brain. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what is lighting up your tape out there in this? No one still has explained to me what all this red means. I've never really seen it before, at least not in recent memory.
Yeah, I know. This is, I think, market going down stuff. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I think, Tesla found a way to make money, which I don't think anybody believes, but what the heck. And Microsoft had great revenue and growth, but the stock's already up like a gajillion from from the beginning of the year. So it's hard I think it's hard at this point to find a reason to go higher. So QQQ stocks, it's really, I mean, the stocks have so front run, however good the earnings could be, that I just think at this point everybody's if everybody sells, then what happens? And right now you have kind of a crazy future premium in VIX. So I mean, SPX vol is down to 24, or VIX is down to 24, and vol, I think. Implied vol and realized vol and all those things are about as low as they've ever been for the COVID cycle right now. So the problem is the COVID's not going away. We've already run up, huge in the Qs for the year. What are they up 15 or 20% or something? So you need some help to keep going at this point. And I don't know where that help comes from. It doesn't mean that we crash or we go ripping up, but there's no, where's the upside catalyst? Just having silver go up, 30% in a month or something, or gold is not going to be enough. So I just think at this point, it's equities you'd think they need a reason to rally, especially once the earnings are coming out. And that's kind of the news. So, what is the upside catalyst? And of course, as I say this, I'm sure things will change, but I think there's also like the issue with surge of cases, and maybe it's also like the famous term, well, don't test so much, because there are reports that as much as 10 times the number of people that have COVID actually have it, they just they haven't gone in and got a test and it hasn't been recorded. So it seems like, the more testing that we do, and I think they've given supposedly 50 million tests so far, the more cases we're going to find. I mean, I know that's the press kind of laughed at that, but I think that's where we are. So it's kind of like Stalemate-ville, and how much more money can Congress throw at this before everybody just has to suck it up and go back to work? So I think it's definitely we're in that kind of what the heck do we do mode, and that's why I think there's so much fixed future premium, and why the back end of SPX is so expensive.
You got to love that argument, right? Of let's just test less, and then the numbers will go back down. That's like, I think that's quite literally putting your head in the sand at that point. If we just don't know that everybody's infected, what's the harm, right? The boogeyman can't get you if you pretend he's not there, right?
That's why it sounds logical to me if you don't want to have big numbers, but they're having big numbers, but. Of all these reports, if we're not the bad outcome for like as serious in the deaths and all that kind of stuff, I think the numbers kind of belie the whole issue of what's going on. You would think if these numbers are this huge, we'd have tons more deaths and tons more people in the hospital and mayhem in the streets, but I don't think it's really. I mean, as far as I can tell, they say that it is, but they're not actually showing pictures on TV of it. So I'm a little confused on if the huge number of cases is translating into more problems for hospitals that they can't deal with, which I believe was the whole reason for the shutdown in the first place, right? The whole idea is, okay, we're going to shut everything down, and then we're going to see what happens and see how the hospitals handle it. And all these things happened. And then we kind of made it through that period, and now they're trying to figure out how to reopen up. I think the problem now is they're trying to reopen up businesses, but people just aren't, abiding by the basics, like wash your hands, social distance. And, since most people or many people have COVID, don't know it, then you wear a mask because nobody really knows, I think, at this point. Mask good, mask bad, who knows? But if you're doing those three things, it would be very hard to spread the virus. So I have the problem is I think part of the messaging is when okay, we're all going to open up and everything's cool. You probably have to deal with all the same crap or the virus is going to spread again. So I don't think everybody kind of stayed on board with, doing what they're supposed to do. On the flip side, though, there's almost no flu in the Western Hemisphere. So people died of COVID, but at least they didn't die of the flu this year.
There you go.
I'm trying to look for the green shoot.
Are you trying to take the Uncle Mike role here on the show, being the optimist? I turn to you for my dose of cynicism, sir.
Yeah, I know. Normally I am, but when I start seeing actual things get like bad, because now so deaths don't count. Like it feels like there's a lot of moving the goalposts a little bit with this thing. And I think most of the rest of the world is not in a, people are kind of abiding by sort of the rules of the social distancing and all that, just like the sort of the normal healthy stuff. And we're trying to be, not spread the disease. And like the Danes have opened up schools, the Italians are getting ready to, I mean, like Scandinavia is, I think maybe because just Scandinavian people just listen, but people in the U.S., they don't listen. They're like, ow, don't inconvenience me. I won't be inconvenienced. And I think that's the biggest issue right now. Like, listen, there's nothing optimal about this situation. And if being inconvenienced is your biggest problem, then I think we should take that as a win. It's not like you got to storm the beach or anything here. You just got to, not touch somebody. So I don't know. I'm getting to be a little. I feel like there's still not quite. People are not on board with trying to sort of get rid of the thing or try to use like a best practice to sort of get back to work and deal until they have some sort of vaccine or easier treatment. But I think the best news has been the death rate has been not, considering how many cases there are or supposed, how many cases. The amount of people dying is not as big. It's still something, right? But it's not as bad as it could be, I guess.
Especially if you see
it,
especially if you see it through that lens of there could be up to 10x more cases out there that are unreported. Then that certainly puts it in light. Of course, the counting of that is another dubious issue, which we won't get into here. Instead, let's count some activity. What's going on out there on the options front today? Let's start with the big major indices. Let's get out to VIX land. Like I said, VIX, I don't think I even had a chance to break down what's going on in our major numbers. VIX was selling off a bit to kick off the show. It was down almost 0.75 of a point from where it was on our last episode. Then, of course, coming to showtime, actually just as a few minutes ago, just crossed 25. Then they kind of tipped back down to about 24.75, which puts it pretty much exactly unched from where it was on our last show. We were right around 24.75 on the last show. VVIX, our old friend, was at about 111.5. That puts it down almost 3 handles, about 2.75 handles. And our old friend VXX was keeping the erosion train alive. It was down about half a handle. It was at 28.75. Let's see where it is right now. Actually, it's ticked up a little bit by half a point, up to about 29.25. So that one is back up to pretty much unched as well. Let's see what the big indices have in store for us, though. VIX right now has about 177,000 contracts on the tape. That's right around half of its ADV, which is 351,000 contracts. SPY, 1.75 million contracts on the tape. The ADV shy of 5 million now, about 4.45 million. The S at a whopping, a blistering 362,000 contracts. In case you can't tell, that was sarcasm in my voice there, listeners. The ADV just a tick over a million, 1.02 million out there. The Q, 688,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV is almost a million, tick under a million, 998,000 there. And IWM at 459,000 contracts. The ADV, 553. So IWM almost doing a full day's worth of paper right now. Let's see what that one's up to out there. We'll get to more small caps in a little bit. Russell 2000 up about half, or a little more, about 2/3% out there. 149.06 on the old IWM. Let's go out to the most active single names. Let's do this first, and we'll get to some of the other fun stuff. Top 10 hot single names cost you a whopping 231,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. So you know it's active when we're over 200K. That gets you all the way to NIO, our old friend in the Chinese electric car manufacturer realm. Number 9, old school telephone name making it on the list. AT&T, number 9, 238,000 contracts. Number 8, Pfizer, 257,000 contracts. Number 7, Micron, some old school names slipping in there. 263,000 contracts there. Number 6, American Airlines, 294,000. Number 5, ye old Twitters, 323,000. Number 4, AMD, still lurking in that top 5 over there, 483,000. Now we're getting somewhere here, listeners. Big paper up here. Number 3, Tesla, all the way down to number 3, 568,000 contracts. That means 2 names are topping Tesla right now. You can probably guess one. Maybe can you guess the other one? We'll find out. Number 2, Apple. Yes, Apple. Number 2, Tesla. Number 3. What's going on with here? Apple at a rockin' 587,000. Usually that's enough to blow the doors off anything. Not today, listeners, because today, number 1 with a bullet is our old friend Softy. Just dominating the tape up here. 641,000 contracts over there. Microsoft down a wee bit of late, down $6 or 205.5. I think, as Mr. Rock Lobster put it, they already have rallied a lot, so it's not a lot of room left. They, of course, were popping off after the bell yesterday. Let's save some of the other stuff. I was going to get into another name. We'll save that. One of the other top names. I think we'll save that for the odd block because there's some funky paper afoot there as well, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on it, Mr. Rockblosser. Let's get to the earnings that are popping off. Earlier this week, we had IBM and Halliburton on Monday. Coke, Warren Buffett's favorite, on Tuesday. Snap, United, Ameritrade, one of their last as a standalone entity out there. iRobot on Tuesday. Wednesday, of course, last night, we had some big names, including Tesla and Softy and Chipote, the AKA the former stealth Apple, not so stealthy anymore. And then today after the bell, we got Twitter, American Airlines, Southwest, AT&T, Intel, my old stomping ground, Sam Adams, E-Trade, Dow, Skechers, and Discover. Of course, if you want the tickers, if you want the earnings volatility analysis, we got it. We got it for you in spades, and it's freaking free. You can't beat the price. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. I'm looking at some of them right now. Tons, literally, of tickers, listeners, being parsed for your earnings enjoyment. Let's see here. Intel after the bell today, 61.05 as of the time of this report. They were pricing in $2.67. In the past, they moved $3.22. So Intel looking a little light out there. Let's see if we have any other ones. Mike, I don't have the earnings results reports here for, let's see, maybe we do have from Microsoft. Do we have it from Microsoft? Not as of yet. That's coming out soon, I think. So check the website in a little bit, listeners. We'll have the exact breakdown for Microsoft and Tesla and all that good stuff. If you want some Tesla, stay tuned. We got some fun for you. Speaking of Tesla, Mr. Rock Lobster, they had earnings yesterday too, and they've been moving quite a bit. Tesla, in fact, as of a few minutes ago, let's see how it. Wait a few minutes if you don't like Tesla stock, because it'll be moving again. It's off 74, almost 75 handles right now, about 4.7% at a whopping 15.17. Already the world's most valuable car maker, and yet perhaps there is more room to run. We'll get to that in a second. But interesting nuggets coming out of places like Robinhood, Mr. Rock Lobster. People like to look at Robinhood user base as a predominantly retail, predominantly small lot kind of audience, and what they hold is kind of a bit of a bellwether for what the retail audience is into. And I think these numbers are, this is Robin Track. Obviously, they track what Robinhood's up to. And they count the number of Robinhood users that were holding Tesla this year. And then back in March at the Madness, the Nadir, it looks like about 150,000 as of this chart, and it's just been pretty much straight up to the moon ever since. In fact, as of, looks like about last week, their latest numbers, it was about almost, not quite 500,000, but looks like about 460-odd thousand out there. So it has more than doubled, closing in on tripling out there in terms of users out there holding Tesla, small Robinhood users. They also like Moderna as well. That one, they're closing in on 300,000. That one had less than 50,000 back in March as well. So folks liking themselves some Tesla out there. You know what, Mr. Rock Lobster? I think we have to just get to it because some of this stuff is just crazy town. So without further ado, let's head right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Welcome to the Odd Block. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. It's going to get weird today, listeners. Strap in. Let's kick it off, Mr. Rock Lobster. The way we used to do back on the show back in the day. Back when Tesla really first started coming on our radar from an options perspective, and there was some crazy paper afoot, I would turn to you and I would say, Mr. Rock Lobster, would you like to hazard a guess as to what the largest open position in Tesla is right now from an options perspective? I will put that to you again. I will give you this caveat, sir. It has changed somewhat since the last time we did this a few months ago. I will just put that out there, and I'll let you mull it over. And what do you think right now is the number one hot position in Tesla, sir?
The only reason I think this because I was reading it on Twitter, but I just saw open interest like the 3,500 calls. I can't remember the term. What I'm doing is I'm going with the Robinhood. I'm going with the crazy. I'm going with the 3,500 calls. That's what I want to go with. I can't remember the term. I just saw people are buying the 3,500 calls, and I don't think it was like January or later of 2022.
No.
I think it was like
it gets better.
August.
Yeah, it gets better. It's not January. Let's get into it. You're pretty close. It's not number one, but they're up there. Number one is actually not reasonable anymore, but term-wise maybe a little more reasonable. It's the July par puts, 100 puts, not 1,000. You could think it was 1,000, and you would be forgiven for doing so, but no. The 100 puts, 44, almost 45,000. Number 2, we go out to Jan again. Jan, 5 puts, 5 even. Not 50, not 500, 5 even puts, 30,000 of those. Then we go number 3, we got the June of 2022, 5 puts. So someone getting a little bit farther out for his catastrophe protection. Someone bought a few Model S's and deciding to hedge. Number 4 here, we got the Jan par puts, Jan 2021 par puts, 100 puts, of course. 20,700 of those. Then we get to number 5, Mr. Rock Lobster. And then you are correct. Number 5 are the July 3,500 call. And July expiring on the 24th. So expiring tomorrow, July 35. I had to read that 3 times to make sure I had not gone insane and had a stroke, sir. 35. So yeah, we're at 1,527 right now, listeners. So to do the basic math for you, you got to go about 2,000 handles to the upside in the span of a day for these bad boys. And that happens.
And they weren't a penny either. Like, they were dollars. They were actually money.
They're going up again today. Some of the big prints we're seeing up there today. In fact, some of the big prints today, let's get to it. Here we go. They're trading today, a bunch of them. Let's look at, I had the print here, but they're going up for a penny to 2 cents. I'm just going to pull it up
today,
again
but I think a week or two ago, they were a lot more money. I had one of my students actually sold some of them for 75 cents or $1.
75 cents.
And I think they went higher, like substantially higher than that dollar wise.
Yeah, I'm not. It's, for some reason, my system's lagging on me right now. But yeah, they have been trading quite a bit. So much so that I had to do a little bit of digging. I was like, what is afoot here? What is going on with these July 3,500s? I'm hard pressed to think of a reason why someone would spend premium beyond a penny, let alone 75 cents for these bad boys. If you're wondering, it's a very recent phenomenon. These only kicked in a little while ago, according to our friend the Flowmaster and Trade Alert over there. They first started trading on July 14th. So these expire on the 24th, listeners. They started trading 10 days before expiration, and that's the first size prints. We had about 3,100 going up that day. They traded 2,500 on the next day, the 15th, 16th, 3,800, 17th, 3,500 more, and this OI is growing pretty much the entire time. And then we get up to some of the bigger days out here. We get to the 20th, almost 13,000 trading. And they were you're right, Mr. Rockoff. So they were trading for 69 cents. On the 16th, they traded for $1.39. On the 16th. Oh my! Wow, that's just, I don't even know where to begin with that. $1.39.
Well, there was that day. Remember when it just ripped $200 and the ball just blew up sky high?
Who thinks 3,500 by this Friday was the strike du jour? Oh my goodness! That's what I get for getting so busy hosting the shows. I miss a chance to sell this juice up there and see the price I pay, quite literally, for talking to you folks out here, listeners. $1.40. These trade 40% on the offer that day, so people were paying $1.40 and more for these things on the 16th. Oh my! This almost hurts me to read this. And then let's see, the 20th we saw about 13,000. The 21st, 15,600. They were trading for an average of 64 cents. And then on the 22nd, yesterday, they traded another almost 13,000. The OI got up to about almost 21,000. 20,700 of these stupid things are open right now, Mr. Rock Lobster. And just yesterday, they were trading for 42 cents.
And I think part of the problem is like margin. Who can sell them, right? How do they even margin the 10 lot? I can't even imagine what the margin on a 10 lot costs, right? Because I think they ramped the margin costs on all this stuff up. So it's just, a 10 lot's pretty expensive because 100 shares is what, $300,000 right now or something. So, you sell a 1 lot, what's the margin on it? $100,000, even though it's $200,000 out of the money. It's still what, half the strike. So they're still going to charge you a ton to margin this thing. And then you can't use, if you have PM, it's one thing, but if you just reg T, forget it.
So you got to go some crazy vertical. You got to go like the 1500, 3500 vertical. That's the only way you can sell these things for any size. You just got to put that vertical on for size and hope that nice second leg works out for you. But yeah, I saw this. I had to analyze it about 3 different times to make sure our screens weren't exploding. That's something crazy hadn't happened. I'm hard pressed though to think people are buying these. I'm hard pressed, Mr. Rock Lobster, to think of a logical reason. You get these all the time. The risk manager taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, you got to cover some upside. Your net short units. You got to do something about this." I don't see a scenario where unless the vol is so bid up, but someone needed these for days, not just one day, one print. They've needed them for about a week now. I'm hard pressed to see a scenario. Mr. Rock Lobster, you've been a risk manager in your day. Think of a scenario where you tap someone on the shoulder and says, "Hey, you got to cover these naked short units," and this is the route they go through, and you're somehow pleased by this. Think about that, sir.
Well, I think the problem is the guys are selling 2000s and 2500s, and there's no strikes above that. So they've got to do something to kind of keep the risk in the tunnel, so to speak. So if it's, even the 2000s or 2200s, you're like, okay, really, are we going to go up there? But if you're trying to manage the risk for a liquidity provider, you can't sell 1,000 of the 2200s because it's a pretty big smack if you're wrong. So you need something to keep the dollar cost reasonable for even on the liquidity provider margin. So I think it's just the fact that all the options got super expensive, and that just translates. The volatility curve is like a cocktail napkin. So if you think about it, you pull up wherever the vol is bid the most, and it sort of drags all the vol up everywhere else on a slightly different, delta, but it's still gonna, you lay the cocktail napkin on the table, you grab a spot and you pull it up, and and that's kind of a approximation for the volatility surface, and it's going to drag everything up. So you have these huge moves, and you're dragging one strike massively. That liquidity is going to pull the vol everywhere else up, and especially when all the paper's one way. You have a jillion, you have millions and millions of one lots just peppering the liquidity providers, and if all the papers just buy, and the stock rips, that's how things get ridiculously expensive. So it makes sense that the price could be there for a lot of reasons. It's just but we can sit back and look at it, that because you don't have an open position. But if you're short, like 2000 gamma in it, then it would be a lot different of a story. So it just depends on what part of the table you're actually sitting on.
Yeah, I'm looking here and looking at some of the other strikes that are open near it for size on the call side. We got about almost 10,000 of the July 24th, 2000 calls. So those are going out tomorrow. And the 2500s is about 8,500 of those open. So I could see someone maybe at the Jumps or the Citadel having sold those, getting that tap on the shoulder saying, "Hey, you got to do something to cover this." And so they scramble on that. I'm guessing they got more than enough juice, Mr. Rock Lobster, for the 2500s and the 2000s. They could afford 60 cents or to $1.40. As ridiculous as it is for you and I on the surface of it, they got enough juice selling those maybe to cover their units at the 3,500. I think the dearth of strikes probably is something there to that as well. Not a lot of choices above 3,000 at this point, sir.
Yeah, because 3,000 is 3,000. It's 1,500 points above where things are trading. So you're going to have the 5,000s, which they might. You never know. So can you imagine? Oh my gosh! And also too, from a retail size, like there's no little options anywhere. There's no $1 options in Tesla anywhere. So like you're a retail person and you got $110. Let's say you have $1,000 account, you can't really buy anything. So what can you buy? Oh, I can buy the 3,000s or the 3,500s for 80 cents. Okay, that sounds reasonable. But you have no idea that, after earnings or whatever, the stock would have to move $2,000 for you to make any money. But that's why we have education businesses. For the education dollar, you would save just spending $150 on a simple vol product from Option Pin. It would keep you from wasting all your money buying options that are almost never have a chance to go in the money.
Yeah, if you're make any money. If you're buying these, I think maybe you're beyond education at this point. Outside of the guy in that scenario I was just talking about, the guy on the jump and Citadel desk who needs to cover his butt. You have to ask your student there what they charged him in margin to sell these bad boys. I would be curious.
Right, I know. He's not a junior premium seller. He's been doing it for a very long time. So, but. He had a PM. I can ask him what they charge them, though, but pretty funny.
Yeah, even at a covered call, it's hard to think of a 3,500 strike as a covered call. I got the stock, 3,500. Why not? Let's do that. This is just. Let us know your own thoughts. You guys are never shy of opinions on Tesla. What do you think is up with these 3,500 calls? Why are they printing like mad a day before expiration for relatively, let's put it euphemistically, generous levels of premium out there? Interesting stuff. Let's keep on rolling here with our odd block fun. Next up, we've got KTOS. No, not the star of the God of War game series, as cool as that would be. No. This is KTOS Defense and Security Solutions. I wonder if the naming has anything to do with that out there. They specialize in directed energy weapons. Whoa, this is like space war stuff. This is interesting. Star Wars, come to life. Unmanned systems, cyber security warfare, microwave electronic missile defense, training, and combat systems. They do it all. If it involves technological violence, they've got it. KTOS, ticker symbol KTOS, trading $18 even, just ticked. 18 even, up 15 cents, or about almost, not quite 1%, about 0.84, excuse me. Of 1% out here. A year ago, this was trading a wee bit north of where it is right now, right around 24.5 or so. Got up to about 25 ever so briefly. Then it sold off in August to about $18 again, and it kind of bounced around in the high teens to low 20s for a while until February of this year. Got up to almost 21, 20.81, and then bam, the market fell out from under it. Got down to $5 even. Nice psychological levels, like how they act as support. And then it just reversed. Got up to 14.5 by March 27th, so it reversed pretty hard, pretty quick, 3x almost in the span of not even a week. Let's see, that was the nadir came when everything else did on the 23rd, so not even a week, and it was back up to almost $15. People realized, wait a minute, maybe we need some of those directed energy weapons. I just like saying that out loud. And then it continued to rally all the way up to about almost $20, 19.5 on June 8th. We all know a lot of names kind of topped out on June 8th. Then this one turned around again. I guess the demand for directed energy weapons turned around at $14.64 again a month later on July 9th, so they gave up a lot of that. And now they're back on the upswing again, including in the last day or so. They were $16 on the 21st, and now they're up to almost $17.98. So this thing's had a lot of fits and starts of late. Let's see what someone's up to today. Someone's got a hankering, to use a technical term, for the AUG 25s out here in KTOS. They're trading for size. We saw prints going up all over the place. Lots of 3,000 lots. 3,000 of these AUG 25s going up for 20 cents, which was dramatically below the bid. They said they were bid for 45 cents, so that might have been a weird print. These went up late, though. A lot of late prints here. They went up for 20 cents again, 3,000 times again. This time the bid was more reflective of it. It was 20 cents. 15 cents at 20 actually was the offer. So obviously this size offer came in and really screwed with things a little bit. Saw 2,500 more going up for 45 cents. Total of 25,000 had gone up as of the start of the show, listeners, for prices all over the place, but ranging from 20 cents up to 45 cents. So this is kind of all over the place. Mr. Rock Lobster, the 25 strike is an interesting one, whether you're selling it or you're buying it up here, because that's pretty much where they started the year and then pretty much haven't looked back ever since. So it seems like either someone's a nice stockholder and looking to get a little bit of premium and getting out back where they started the year at the 25 strike, or someone thinks the party, this 45 cent lot is kind of screwing me up here a little bit, because otherwise it looks like a lot of harvesting, but the 45 cent kind, maybe they just had to clear out a bid in the book, but this is pretty for size. It's 2,500, so it's a little more than a 10 lot lurking there from your grandmother in the book. But either way, someone trading these things for size. Mr. Rock Lobster, what do you think someone is up to in these size upside calls in everyone's favorite directed energy weapon manufacturer, a.k.a. KTOS, sir?
Sorry, just the directed energy manufacturer. It sounds so, it sounds so, it sounds so vicious. It's really weird. It does seem like the overwhelming amount of paper is selling that strike. So funky buy right, fading earnings. I think earnings are at the end of this month. So it feels like some kind of call sale because they got the hammer down, like they traded 25.45 and they're offered at 30. It still feels like the hammer is quite down on those calls. So my nose would say somebody's selling the crap out of them. Vol's down and there's huge volume, so I'm just assuming it's a sale.
Yeah, someone obliged them with a 45-cent print. That was very generous of them. Yeah. Oh, you want to sell 25,000 at 20? How about I pay 45 cents for about 3,000? Is that okay with you? Yeah, okay. I guess I'll take that. If I really have to. If you want to pay me more than double, I guess I'll take it. So yeah, weird things afoot, but I agree with you. It does seem like it's the preponderance of the paper. So that 5 times fast is leaning towards the aggressive harvesting. Hard to argue with this guy. If that stock gets back to where it was, he's happy, and he's got his 20 cents plus 45 a few times. It's about 25,000 times here as an extra sweetener if he gets the heck out of Dodge out here. So interesting stuff afoot. We're going to come back to this just because I like to say directed energy weapon manufacturer. You're right. It does sound like something straight out of Star Wars. But before we roll out of the odd block, we talked about some weird stuff already. Let's look back really quickly. Let's put on the way back pants, Mr. Rock Lops. Let's go back to July 2nd, so just to this month, to everyone's favorite name out there. No, they don't make directed energy weapons, unfortunately. This is TSM. This is, of course, Taiwan Semi. I won't tell you where they're trading right now because that's a bit of a spoiler. But at the time, on July 2nd, we profiled someone piling in to the July 61 calls, paying 60 cents. There was a 3,000 lot that went up that caught our eye, but a total of 26,500 of these things traded on the day. So someone had an axe to grind on the 61 strike. The stock at the time was at 58.62. And it looks like this trade worked out, Mr. Rock Lobster, because as of expiration, the stock closed at 66.40, which, to do the math, is well north of that 61 strike there. And looking at the paper flow out here, it looks like this guy didn't wait long, Mr. Rock Lobster, to get the heck out of Dodge, because we started seeing size prints just a few sessions later on the 6th. We saw over 15,000 of these things trading. That took off a lot of the OI when they were around $2, $1.98. So he paid about 60 cents for at least that 3,000 lot, and maybe around 60 cents for the rest of them too, probably, and closed out a good chunk of them for around $2. So by my math, that's a pretty good do, as they used to say. So on the 3,000 lot, looks like this guy picked up around $400,000. Not a bad deal. If you add up all the OI that went up that day, then he did over $3.5 million, about $3.6 million out there. So looks like, Mr. Rock Lobster, we got a bit of a winner chicken dinner on our hands with our call love here in Taiwan Semi, sir.
Well, you know what, Taiwan it is that loosely. I mean, it's not the sexy technology company, but I did have clients that used to play in that quite a bit, actually, and they just liked it. Yeah, in the old days as a put right, because it was kind of like a solid company that wasn't really going to go away, and they sold chips all over the world and stuff like that. So, but this is a lot more, this is a lot more old fashioned, where they looks like they buy some options and the stock goes up like 10%, and your calls. Your 60-cent calls over $5 or $6, and you go, woohoo! So, hey, it works sometimes, especially in stocks that like to go up.
Does work sometimes. Let's see if your feedback works sometimes. It is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, welcome to the Mail Block. This is where you guys take the reins. You guys know how to get at us. at Options, most of the major social media platforms. The live chat is a way to get bumped to the top of the list. Questions at the Options Insider. You can send smoke signals to the Rock Lobster up there in Maine, and he'll try to decipher them for us. A lot of ways for you guys to get in touch with us. Mr. Rock Lobster, it seems like whenever you're on, you engender, shall we say, controversy. Because our first up, looks like we got a bit of a complaint here. This comes from Justin Smathers. He starts off nice. He says, your podcast is great, but we don't just take the love, even though we like the love. We'll take your complaints too. He says, your podcast is great. Well, thank you, Justin. He goes on to say, but it would help if you looked at the big volume names before your show starts. The discussion around CLNY, which was Colony Capital Inc., on Thursday was comical. He laughed. He thought it was funny. You guys knew nothing about the company. Could have been a much more constructive 5 minutes, I'm just saying. He writes in afterwards. He's a nice guy for the most part. He says, I appreciate, it was all good, though, he says, and the buys last Thursday and Friday that he noticed were largely calls, so why not cover why someone might be buying those calls rather than why someone would not want to sell puts or sell calls? He's referring, Mr. Rock Lobster, to our show on July 16th. Where we profiled what was almost a 10,000 lot, 9,995 of the Jan 2022 two-half calls for 52 cents. And the second I see this print, I'm like, I realize I know exactly what we talked about, because this comes up a lot whenever we talk about cheapy names out there, which is, of course, the notion of trading such pricey options on such a cheap name. Colony Capital, listeners, right now is trading, I just had it up, here we go, a whopping $1.84. So whenever we see someone paying that much premium, even to go that far out, for a stock that is effectively a little more than 3x what the price of the options are right now, that always raises that specter of discussion of, hey, trading options on a cheap name, what really is the value? And I'm sure we touched on it there with that one too. But I bring this up to add a further point to this. We get this kind of feedback a lot. Why didn't you talk more about XYZ stock? Why didn't you go more into the reasons? It was actually an analyst upgrade. It was an analyst downgrade. That's what's causing all this. Let me just put this out there. If you're coming to this show for a deep dive into the fundamentals of XYZ stock, you are tuning into the wrong program. We love you, but that's not what we do here. We talk about the options flow. In fact, I say it many times before the start of the odd block, I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at any of the odd block. I like to be surprised. It's kind of fun. It makes it a little bit more live theater. And also, the more you know about the stock, it tends to color your analysis of the flow. We want to give you our pure, unadulterated flow analysis here on this show. This reminds me of when I first walked on the floor of the SIBO. Young, fresh face right out of college. And, I'm doing some clerking stuff there in IBM, which was the big equity options pit. One of the big pits going out of all the pits there on the SIBO, and I'm doing stuff, and I'm slinging stock, and I'm feeling good about myself. And I'm seeing all these trades go up, and so I'm seeing stock going up, stock going down, and I'm saying to these guys, okay, so what are you doing to, these market makers, what are you doing as you're trading these things? You must be doing a lot. You must be working with analysts to see what their recommendations are on the stock and what's driving all this flow and why this guy's buying these calls here. You think maybe he has this target here. And trying to do all this behind-the-scenes analysis. And they all looked at me like I was a crazy person. They said, what are you on, kid? What are you talking about? Who the hell has time for that? A, B, there's so much flow coming, and you have to kind of just dive into the fray and trade it. And that's kind of what they did, and that was the outlook they had. And we take a similar level of analysis. We'll talk about some fun stuff every now and then, like those crazy, absurd July 3,500 calls in Tesla. But we're not going to spend an hour on the fundamental analysis of if you can even do that in Tesla these days, on these. That's not what we do. We do the flow here. So we like to talk about the flow. Sometimes people get mad because we don't spend a lot of time either supporting their position in XYZ name or talking against a position that they don't want, they don't like. We don't do that. That's not what we do. We'll talk about the flow and what we think about it and what we think is up to in this name, and also the utility of how they do it. That's another big part of the odd block. If they could have done this a little bit better, and in this case, we always take a dim view of spending that much for a stock that is already flirting with disaster, shall we say. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, what say you to Justin's criticism, his critique of our rather cavalier attitude towards these CLNY long-term calls, sir?
Our cavalier attitude. You know what? I could just say, come up with your own content. But I would say, I mean, what's funny is why? Like, part of the show too is part of the odd block, and I realize you guys, but we're trying to also highlight paper that just looks absurd. Like, why would you do this trade? And the reason why we highlight stuff is also to get people like, why would you do a trade like this? And then he says, okay, well, it's not very constructive. But 10 minutes before, we're saying people are buying 3,500 level calls in Tesla and expecting a payout. So what we try to do, part of the odd block is you got to think about the trade, understand how it actually can function to make you money. We highlight stupid stuff sometimes because people do stupid stuff, and trying to save other people from making the mistake of, okay, buying 3,500 calls because I think I'm going to make some money. So the rationale for selling the 2.5s is, it's kind of it's a silly call to sell in that long out of time. Because I think the whole risk reward setup is just very poor for the amount of, whatever capital and stuff, what are you going to get out of your 1.5 year trade? So, if you want to deploy your money like that, feel free. So that's part of the reason why we do it, and every once in a while, like all sometimes comedy, it might not quite hit the mark, but our heart was in the right place.
Always with you, the Rock Lobster, do we stir up the controversy. It's the diehard Mainer in you, I think. It tweaks people, gets them going. Like, how dare you talk about selling puts, sir? That's just a firestorm.
Which was my trade of the year, by the way.
Yeah, it worked out. So, there you go. You get to laugh all the way to the bank on these people. Speaking of those aforementioned insane, and we're joking. We take with criticism. We love you all here on this show out here. We like to have fun. All right, let's see. Speaking of those absurd July 24th, 3,500 calls. We were talking before, just kind of in a silly way, about what would a broker charge for margin to sell those calls. And Jethro Dull was listening. I just like the handle. That's why he gets on the show. Jethro Dull. I like that. He says, I don't know, but I'm starting to get the feeling that my longs aren't going to get there. Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Jethro. I don't think you'll be blowing through the 3,500 strike by tomorrow. But, you get extra points. You get bonus points for having a cool handle and for listening to a cool show. Let's roll out here on some love, since we had controversy to kick it off before we head on into the Around the Block fun. This comes from Theodore Domzalski. I like it. I like the name. Hopefully I didn't butcher it. He says, I have been listening for 6 months now. I love the lineup. I love the knowledge. Well, you know what? You're welcome there, Theodore. Maybe because we're buddies now, I can call you Ted. Welcome there, Ted. We love doing it for you. We love all you guys out there, even the haters. Mostly come for the Rock Lobster. You can engage with him. But we love you all out there. That's why you guys are the reason we do this, after all. As we head on into our final segment, it is time to go Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, let's head around the block. Mr. Rock Lobster, we shall commence with you, sir. A lot to unpack out here. We've got virus numbers. We've got the escalating tensions here with China. We're closing each other's consulates now. We've got earnings to digest. We've got all sorts of madness being thrown into the sometimes tasty, sometimes just boiling hot stew that is the market, sir. So what is on your radar until we can gather here together tomorrow on Volatility Views?
Well, what it feels like the great unwind, at least for just today. VIX is up a little bit. I think this is part of the reason why future premium is so juicy. Like, oh, okay. Wow, those Microsoft earnings are out, and they were pretty good, but the stock is down $7.50. So I think just Tesla, the news came out. Apple, had, of course, it was like, it's up $150 from the kind of the lows. So I think the reality of the earnings picture, like the fundamentals, maybe just slapped the market in some of these stocks where they are right now. So I don't know if we crash, but at least like the reality kind of has let's just call it held the rally up. And we are getting a little pop in VIX. But the reality is the S&P 500 is down 1%. And VIX is actually up on the day. And unless we get a total just crap the bed type of move, I even think that the vol starts to collapse a little bit here as the Qs kind of slide back some and give back some of the gains. So I'm not being too gloom and doomy about the Qs. Wow, that run-up was historic, but at the end, it's still they might have got a little ahead of themselves. AMD trading at 130 times earnings or whatever. There's a point that those things are going to stop. You don't know when, but it looks like at least for today, they're stopping. So I would be, if you actually saw some real jump in VIX. Maybe a little bit more concern, but as of right now, so the August is 28.5. So VIX is acting quite normally, right? It's absorbing the futures absorbing the cash move, which is sort of, I would be more worried if the futures are still ripping, but they're absorbing a lot of the cash move. So which usually is generally not super bullish vol, at least in the short term, but as of right now, it was kind of okay, a little bit of an expected sell-off, but you're not, you're already trading at a 25. We need a lot more of a sell-off to get all this stuff going, And the Qs, everybody knows they're the top 6 or 7 stocks anyway. So everything else is not even anywhere near that level, so nobody wants to sell them. And I think that might be the vol dampener. Mark actually put something out on that this morning, actually, on that very subject. He's like, hey, the Qs look way overbought and the SPY not so much. So he actually thought of a little like a short Q long SPY thing, which looks pretty good right now. So anyway, that's what I'm looking at, and I'm not taking my eyes off it today.
No matter what our listeners say out there. Unfortunate listeners, that music means we've come to the end. Our old pal, Mr. Uncle Mike, had to hop off. He had a bit of some client issues he had to deal with, some clients' fun stuff he had to go deal with. So check him out over there. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go kick the tires and light the fires. You want someone to hold your hand, talk you off the ledge during these crazy markets. Hey, he's back at it. He's back in it now. He's trading up for size. He's got deltas in SPY. He's slinging silver collars. Find out what the heck he's up to. Maybe you want to put up some trades with him. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, if folks are intrigued, maybe this guy wants to reach out to you and continue the debate about odd block paper. Where should they go? What should they do?
Well, he can debate me live, where we do live classes every week. You can try our Trading Legion, Sharp Bets, or the Vol Edge. Or, hey, we try to become one of our pro clients, but we won't, even though you might want to give us a lot of money, we won't take it. We'll wait till you've been around for a while before we try to kick you to the upgrade stuff. So, come in at Trading Legion, try to figure out what all this vol trading is. And OptionBit's had clients for 10 years. We're very proud of that. And you think, wow, haven't we taught them anything yet? And we actually have. They just like sticking around for the good trade ideas in our pro chat room and the risk management, how to put trades together. So it's good for us and it's good for our students. And if you want to put some learning on, come to OptionBit.com.
They stick around for the camaraderie that is the option, the Rock Lobster. That's what it is for. That's
the saltiness.
The salt of the earth. That is the Rock Lobster. If you want to get some of that tasty salt for yourself, OptionPit.com is the place to go. And if you need a little more in your ear holes, well, then stay tuned. Like I mentioned, we'll be back in exactly half an hour. Mr. Dan Grams himself should be fun over there on TWIFO, talking all things futures, options, the volume, the vol, the volatility. I think he wants to get into some FX and some silver, all sorts of fun stuff today. So we're going to get into all of that and a lot more in exactly a half an hour. Pump some fun stuff in the live chat in the meantime to keep you occupied. Otherwise, if you're listening after the fact, we love you guys too. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for Vol Views, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then it all kicks off again on Monday with more of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.